Works meeting to order. Could I have roll call, please, Phyllis?
Craig Koshaw.
Here.
Bill Carba.
Here.
Ken Meyer.
Here. You all emailed a copy of our minutes from our August 15th meeting. Did you have a chance to look at those minutes? If so, do I have a motion to approve?
Motion to approve the minutes. Second.
A motion and a second. All in favor to approve the minutes from August 15th, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, the same. Thank you. First thing up on the agenda this evening is the discussion and pending decision on Ed Gage's request for disannexation. And we started that 3 weeks ago, I think it was. 3 weeks ago. And tabled it. And Tim, I think you had some... Tim, you're going to have to bear with Tim.
I swallowed a frog, so I don't speak well tonight. The statute is not real helpful in terms of the procedure that we follow, other than we're to hold a public hearing and then the board is to make a decision on this. So what I tried to do is go back and look at my notes as far as comments that were made at the public hearing, looked at the records of the city, and then I did some legal research on this. But what I ended up doing is just identifying kind of a findings of fact, conclusions, and then an order. And the order is either to grant or deny the petition that Mr. Gage submitted. The findings of fact I tried to base on the petition itself, what was presented at the public hearing, the city records, and then the conclusions are, and what I did is, these are statements that would be read, and then the board would consider each statement and vote yes or no in terms of the finding of fact. And then when they get to the conclusions, there's two conclusions that come out of two lawsuits that I found, or two cases that I looked at, and then finally a vote on whether to grant the petition for disannexation or not. So that's how I've got this set up, and for lack of any further guidance, it's kind of the best way that I see how to do this. So I'm going to pass this out to each of the board members, and then basically this acknowledges that Mr. Gage appeared in person and by his counsel Adam Miller petitioning the city for disannexation. And again, this is a little bit confusing because what was originally annexed was 7.95 acres. But what the petition asked to disannex is roughly 5.5 acres. So I'm not quite sure what the difference is. So I just said that the disannexation of approximately 7.95 acres, which was originally annexed into the city on August 5th, 1975, a portion or all of which was platted as Winchester South 2nd Edition on November 20th, 1975. And that is the legal from the plat. The 5.5 comes from the plat, not from the acreage that was actually annexed. So the petition is to disannex the 5.5 acres. After holding a public hearing on the petition, as required by law, and that meeting was duly advertised, after reviewing the city's records regarding the annexation of the subject real estate, after considering reasons for disannexation as presented by the petitioner and his counsel, and after considering public comments and comments from board members, the Board of Public Works and Safety makes the following findings of fact, conclusions of law and order. So we'll start with the findings of fact. The first is, city records reveal that Robert Lowell Gage and Donna Jean Gage voluntarily petitioned for annexation of subject real estate in 1975. So what I would suggest is that you just identify You believe that to be true or not? Yes or no? And we'll just go down and mark the tally of the 3 board members. So, Ken?
Yes.
Craig?
Yes.
Bill? Yes. So, 3 yeses on that. City records reveal that annexation
Tim,
was...
would you like me to read these?
You can if you... Yeah, it's fine.
I'm just trying to help you
No,
out.
appreciate it.
City records reveal that annexation was approved in ordinance 1975-20, which was adopted by the Common Council of the City of Decatur on August 5th, 1975, publication of which occurred on August 8th, 1975, and again on August 15th, 1975 in the Decatur Daily Democrat. And we'll just go reverse. Bill?
Yes.
Craig?
Yes.
And I say yes also. The subject property has remained a part of the City of Decatur, Indiana, since such annexation. Bill?
Yes.
Craig?
Yes.
Yes. City records reveal that a portion or all of the subject property annexed into the city was platted as Winchester South 2nd Edition by Robert Lowell Gage and Donna Jean Gage on November 20th, 1975. Bill?
Yes.
Craig?
Yes.
Yes. Since said plot was approved, the property has remained undeveloped and has been used for farming purposes. Bill?
Yes.
Craig?
Yes.
Yes. Robert Lowell Gage predeceased Donna Jean Gage, who died over 15 years ago.
Yes.
Craig?
Yes.
Yes. Following the death of Donna Jean Gage, Edward Gage became the owner of the subject real estate and has continuously owned the subject real estate since that time.
Yes.
Yes.
Yes. Edward Gage maintains that his parents told him that they did not know the subject property had been annexed and platted, and therefore this constitutes grounds that the subject property should be disannexed. City records corroborate the hearsay evidence offered up by the petitioner.
Yes.
And if anybody has questions before you vote,
Yeah. Let's clarify that.
Yeah, what I'm saying is, Mr. Gage represented that his folks had told him that they weren't aware that the city had completed these processes. The records that you've said, Joe, that there was action taken by them to get this done is inconsistent with that. So the question is, do you agree with what Mr. Gage indicated, and do the city's records corroborate that or not?
No, the city's records don't corroborate that.
Craig, still got a question?
But I don't... What's been platted says that it's been platted.
Right.
Constitutes ground that the subject property should be disannexed. City records corroborate the hearsay evidence offered up by
Basically,
the petitioner.
do the city records corroborate what Mr. Gage said?
The answer is no.
Okay, that's what I'm trying to say.
Okay.
I say no also. Petitioner produced other evidence to support or corroborate this allegation.
In other words, did Mr. Gage offer anything to substantiate what his folks had said to him?
No.
Craig?
No.
No. Edward Gage maintains that a second ground for disannexation is that he believes the subject property should be under the same jurisdiction as his adjoining property, i.e., under the jurisdiction of Adams County, Indiana, as he intends never to develop the subject property, and because the city has made no improvements to the subject property in anticipation of development. The city of Decatur, Indiana historically runs infrastructure improvements to a platted area but requires the developer to install infrastructure extensions within the addition which are then dedicated to the city. Tim, comments?
Okay, so Mr. Gage again raised his reason why he's asking for disannexation, that it's never been developed, he doesn't intend to develop it, and the city hasn't made any improvements. The city doesn't make improvements, the developer does. So, and then the developer dedicates that to the city. So the point that this is the city of Decatur historically requires that the developer do the infrastructure. So is that statement correct? That's what the city's practice is?
Yes.
Okay, right here, this third line.
That's what you're saying, yes or no to?
Right. The city of Decatur historically runs infrastructure improvements to a platted area but requires the developer to install. The answer is yes.
Yes. Lack of development was the choice of the Gage family, not the city of Decatur.
Yes.
Yes.
Yes. The city has water, sewer, and stormwater utilities readily accessible to the subject property, which would allow development should the petitioner so desire.
Yes.
Yes.
Yes. Desire to have the subject property controlled by Adams County, because Adams County has jurisdiction over petitioner's adjoining property, is a compelling reason to disannex the subject property.
No.
No.
No. City has current need to maintain jurisdiction over the subject property for utility purposes, especially stormwater purposes.
Yes.
Yes.
Yes. Future development of the subject property would be beneficial to the city of Decatur, Indiana, while disannexation would be injurious, is that how you say that? Injurious to the city due to loss of existing and future tax revenues.
Yes.
Yes. Yes, fine.
Yes. Disannexation of the subject property will worsen pockets of unannexed areas surrounded by areas currently annexed or to be annexed into the city of Decatur.
Yes.
Yes.
Yes. Despite annexation occurring over 42 years ago, and despite petitioner owning the subject property for more than 15 years, petitioner timely filed his petition for disannexation.
No.
You understand, Craig?
No.
That was an answer, no?
No.
Okay. No. So conclusion of law pursuant to Salmon versus the City of Bloomington, 761 Northeast 2D 440, 2002.
Indiana Court of Appeals.
Indiana Court of Appeals, 2002. Petitioner has met his heavy burden to establish that grounds for disannexation exists by showing egregious action or lack of action on the part of annexing municipality.
No.
No.
No. And pursuant to the town of Cloverdale, 901 Northeast 2D 524, Indiana Court of Appeals, 2009, petitioner failed to timely file his petition for disannexation and therefore is stopped from now seeking disannexation under theories of latches and the running of the statute of limitations.
Yes.
Yes.
Yes. Keep going, Tim? So by order, petitioner's petition for disannexation is Granted or denied?
Denied.
Denied.
Denied. Adam, Ed, any questions?
Yes. Do any one of the three of you have any idea what either one of those two dates say? For the record?
For the record, no.
Okay.
No.
No. Okay. All right. And the three of you did not prepare any of those questions on the facts, is that correct?
Correct.
Did you see in these before today's hearing?
No.
Okay. That's all.
I have two questions. My question to you is, was anybody on the board, or has there been any research into who attended the meeting in question in November of 1975 when this was approved and annexed?
Well, I saw it in the minutes from Phyllis's office.
My parents were not at that meeting.
I'm not sure if they were at that meeting or not, but
They were not.
I believe I saw your dad's signature.
No, you saw it on the August meeting. You didn't see it in the November meeting. My mother, that's the comment which I have to make. She did not attend that meeting, neither did my father. There was comments regarding the second edition of why it was not approved to be put in, even though somebody approved it, collect taxes off the property.
Mr. Gage, the one thing that I would point out is you're petitioning to disannex this property. The platting occurred 3 months later. That's the meeting you're talking about, your folks not being at. The annexation occurred in August. They were represented by Fred Sugar.
Was there, from what I understand, a plot, a proposed plot of the area in August of 1975 was the point?
I have no idea. There are two different matters. I'm sure that the annexation was asked for in anticipation of the development. As a practical matter, the first issue that was addressed was the annexation. So that whether it's ever developed is really a secondary issue. It has nothing to do with the annexation, which your folks asked for.
Well, from what I understand, and this is what my mother and father did tell me, and as I commented to you at the last meeting, they were not aware that this was approved and it was annexed, other than where I live at, which is Winchester South, Section 1. And that was, from what I understand, only that section was approved before the city did.
But I don't understand your point. I mean, what difference does that make? The annexation is 42.
Number two, the 5.5 acres was never, my parents told that and rejected that. There was actually,
And do you have proof of that?
yeah, because of the cul-de-sac at the end, the closing of the airport. That's what was stated. And I state that because they were not at that meeting. They rejected that whole statement.
You're making that statement, but that's just your words telling us that there's no proof, right?
Yes, there is. My parents weren't there. It was rejected.
Okay. This needs to be signed. Give Adam a copy of it.
Well, I'm sorry, Ed, but we're disallowing this annexation.
And you're right.
Then you have an out copy.
Yeah, I'll give you, that's what it is. I'll give you a sign for it.
You have mine.
Thank you.
Well, did we just say something wrong here?
I wish to say one additional thing. Thank you for hearing me.
Did we just...
Thank you, Ed.
Because we didn't know the case?
Next thing on the agenda is Kurt, you got, or Phyllis, do you have the agreement for Felgerhart?
No impeachment.
No, I hope Kurt does, because I couldn't find it.
I want to dig.
You
Kurt,
said
did you
you
have
had
the
it.
agreement?
Huh?
Did you have the agreement?
Felgerhart, HVAC,
I couldn't find it.
I got a copy.
Oh.
This one, you talking about this thing?
Well, that's not,
I don't know if it was maybe,
yeah, this is not the actual.
Oh, my parts.
Ken, I don't know if it may be not to me, but why would a person like that, once he inherited that, and he didn't want to manage at that point, you know, what is the 15-year time really?
I know you did.
No.
It was just a copy. Getting a lot of meetings.
And he doesn't want that whole certificate.
Yes, and I see the price down here.
So did you?
Moving on here, Kurt has a proposal from Philgerhart Inc. It's in reference to the HVAC upstairs here and the heating coils, and you can explain a lot better than me, Kurt.
Basically, what it is the heating coils upstairs has a oil/lubricant run through the coils, and it was determined in 2014, actually, I have a bulletin here from Emerson Plymouth Technologies and Copeland Industries. The solvent that was installed was August 28th, 2014 is when this bulletin came out, and they ran into several issues with the oil that runs through the coils would clog up. When it clogs up, then the coils will continually freeze. We have that situation going on upstairs right now. Philgerhart came in and basically slapped a Band-Aid on it to get us through the hotter months. They're stating that once the months start to get cooler, end of September, October, there won't be nearly as much of a load on that unit, and it will continually start to ice up. So what they've given us is a proposal of what they can do to fix the system.
Which is to recover the refrigerant from both circuits, drain the heating coil and disconnect the piping, disassemble the air unit to get access to the coil, furnish and install distributor assemblies for both circuits, furnish and install new expansion valves and refrigerant dryers for both circuits, reassemble the unit, reconnect heating coil and fill with water, check for leaks, evacuate and recharge the unit, check operation and set superheat. And the price was $4,570. And I've been up and seen it. Craig, you've been up and seen it.
Yeah, I got one question. Is this, if we choose to expand, is this unit large enough to take care of both floors?
That we don't know.
I don't think.
Martin Riley
Yeah.
was supposed to get back with us on any of the changes. They were going to have their guys actually look into it, and we haven't heard anything back from them.
Okay, when are they going to take care of the work? When they want to do this? September, October?
He's wanting to do this end of September, 1st October. He needs 38 days to order.
Right.
You may just want,
Yeah.
you may just want to stick another unit up there, a small, to take care of.
How long does it take them to do the actual work?
They should have it done in a couple of days.
Okay. That's all my questions.
So we were kind of waiting to see what Martin Riley was going to come back with, but it's kind
And I'll give Jack Daniel a call.
It's midpoint.
because we're not going to be able to do anything until next year anyway.
Okay.
So we just got to get us through the winter.
Right.
And we,
Who are you contacting at Martin Riley?
Jack.
Jack Daniel. Contact Trevor Byerly.
Well, but Jack was down here and met with me.
Trevor, he was going to talk to
Is-
Trevor, because Trevor had something to do with the design. I'm just trying to tell you.
Trevor? What's his last name?
Byerly.
Byerly.
Byerly. Okay. I have a motion to go ahead with this.
I'll make a motion to go ahead and take care of that.
Second.
Motion and a second to go with Philgerhart for the repair work here. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed, the same. Thank you. Do you need me to sign this, or who?
Phil needs a copy of it. Just get back to him.
Okay. Mark Sullivan is here from Midwest Engineering. Actually, for the sake of time, since you're going to be here for a little bit of the council meeting as well, I'm going to delay you a little bit here. And I'm going to bring up the safety park agreement so we can get maybe a couple other guys out of here. The safety park was recently, the safety park work and field given to the city from North Adams Community Schools, and the safety park had an agreement with North Adams Schools, and now we want to have the same type of a situation or setup with the safety park, and that Mike Pettibone and Jeff Sheets are both here representing the safety park. And Phyllis, you have that agreement? You've both seen this, looked at it, approve it. Basically, the city's kind of squaring up on most of this, with the exception of, in lieu of the safety committee paying the utilities, which you had been paying in the past. In lieu of paying the utilities, commencing in 2018, you would be paying the city a lump sum of $1,000 annually during the term of the agreement of renewals, and that payment would be due on January 5th of each year. And I think, Mike, was it you that asked if it could be done in a couple payments, or?
Whatever's best for you guys, what works out, that would be fine.
Either way would be fine.
What we do is we get our, almost 100% of our revenue to run Safety Park comes from United Way. And we get United Way payments quarterly, or we get United Way payments quarterly. So we can make those, we're going to use those to make our payments for the responsibility we would have to the city. So it makes no difference if we make them at the end of the year. We can make them at the end of the year. We can make them, we can make them twice a year, whatever works out.
What's comfortable for you, Mike?
Yeah.
Twice a year would probably be the easiest way to do it. How's that?
Sounds cool.
We can just change that in here. Yeah. And for the balance of this year, you'll still pick up and pay the electric and gas utilities, correct? Yeah. And and then the city's going to pay the insurance.
Make a motion that we pay the payments twice a year as mandated. Is that okay, Ken?
Yeah, how about January 5th and June 5th?
That's fine.
Yeah.
Second.
All in favor? Aye. Opposed, the same. Okay, I've added that into the language there. And Tim, is there anything else that really needed mentioned on this? I think that was kind of the
city takes over all utilities after that.
Phyllis, how much was that Emerson Climate Tech? 45?
4570.
Yeah, thanks. So, Tim, we need to,
I would make, Craig's motion was to amend it to allow two payments,
right?
January 5th, June 5th, at $500 each instead of one payment of $1,000. And so adopt the amendment and then approve the agreement as amended.
Okay, so I've made the change of the payments being $500 biannually, due January 5th and June 5th. And we've already made a motion and seconded and passed that. Now I just need a motion to pass this agreement.
As amended.
As amended.
As amended, so moved.
Second.
Motion and a second to pass the safety park agreement as amended. All in favor? Aye. Opposed, the same. Thank you.
On behalf of Jeff and I both want to thank you very much. We are excited that, number one, the city has partnered with us on this, and I think it really will allow us to take some steps forward. We service between 2,000 and 3,000 kids a year there between the fire
between fire safety, pedestrian safety, and bicycle safety. And then plus Janet Torsen organizes our
Halloween?
Halloween. So we don't have enough houses for all the sponsors that she generated. And last year we approached 900 kids going through there.
They were lined up for blocks.
And they go all the way down to 10th Street and start back north.
No.
And that's that neighborhood that I grew up in, and so I know that. But just know that we're excited about that, and we just really feel like this agreement keeps us moving, and also gives us the opportunity to do some maintenance on that park that we feel like to keep the integrity out there.
It's a great asset, and it's not only used just by North Adams, it's used by...
No, it's all of Adams County, and the pedestrian safety also is all of the kindergartners in Wells County. And in the past, the Wells County Community Foundation has made some donations to Safety Park to help with some of the facility updates, so just know that.
Good deal. All right. Thanks, Mike.
Thank you.
Thank you, guys.
Mike, you want to sign one of these? And I think I have
Jeff,
Mike and Jeff both.
I can replace that front page and send them the front page.
Okay. What we're going to do is we'll retype the front page.
Huh?
We'll retype the front page. And then while you're going to sign the second page.
Out after I change it.
we trust you.
I don't know about that, Mike. E-R-Y. Thank you, guys. I'll let you hang on to that for now. How about utility count write-offs, Kevin? Hey, Mike. Jeff.
There was 2
There's
copies.
2 copies.
Oh, well.
What's your autograph again, Mike?
Because we'll give you an original.
Look at that pettibone. Thank you. Well, it's that time again where we look at past due utility bills and write them off. And Kevin, we started a collection agency how many years ago?
It'll be 4 years ago now, so hopefully this is the last year of being this high of amount to get rid of.
I don't have with me what last few years is. Has this kind of been in par with,
Yeah,
right on par with where we've been?
give or take 2,000.
And we didn't look into having the owner of the property be liable. And that-
No, not really. We've talked about it, but we've not done anything.
I think our statute says, our ordinance says that the owner is actually responsible, but you have the owners who are claiming that they didn't know. They had no idea that people left with the wood.
Can we go and let these people know that if they rent to somebody, they're responsible for the bill?
I think when you see these things, it may be time to talk to the landlords and just say, you're going to put it in the names of tenants. It's going to stay in your name and you collect it from your tenants.
Exactly.
We need to make that change.
That'd be the only real, 90% of these are renters,
Yep.
at least.
Holy cow. It's not doing a very good justice for utilities.
Are the numbers looking better now when we fired up collection?
Well,
Yeah, and the girls up front, they do a lot better job of, they're on the phone a lot sooner to get them. And I don't know if it's a state ordinance, I believe it is, that says we can't send a collection before it's a certain amount.
here.
I believe, I think it's either 200 or 300, so,
She's still here.
and sometimes that 1.5 months, people are up over that, so.
Well, if these have been turned over.
Or actually, I think it might be 3 months, you have to be past 3 months before it can be sent to collection.
There may be reasons why you...
You can get up to like $500 pretty quick.
Is Vic still alive?
Who?
Vic Ryder,
Yeah.
is he? He's here.
And one thing we do is if they do have, they can't get their name, they can't get utilities back in their name until this is paid out, so.
No, but
Their
Kevin,
wives can and their kids.
what
can.
happens, they put it in their kid's name, or they put it in...
See, I see people
wife's
here who
name?
I venture to say have
Yep,
services from us right now, one way or another.
I don't know what it would take, but I certainly would be in favor of landlords that if they want utilities turned on, the utilities go into their name, and then they're responsible to collect it from their renters.
Saying that on open accounts, the statute of limitations is 6 years, that's why these are being written.
I don't know how we go about doing that, Mr. Mayor.
These are through.
The girls could easily tell me which ones are renters, right?
Yes,
Okay,
yeah, we have all owners
5 years
information.
old and up.
I'd like to have that. Just,
So this is over a 5-year
What,
period.
wonder if they,
Yeah, like I said, overnight.
Every year we don't write this up?
I'd like to know which ones are rentals and who the owner is.
exactly, they look at the address, they can go that route.
Yeah.
First time.
It might take a little research, but
No one-
These past due accounts are 5 years old. Go back to 2011, December of 2011.
And 2012 is when they started the collection agency.
Why couldn't the collection agency have went after any of these?
That I couldn't tell you. Which, I don't know if that's how the contract works with them, if it's just going forward.
There must have been some reason. Yeah, like Tim said, I've seen names of people who I know are still living here, whatever. I said, why don't we go after them? He says, well, we don't know the circumstance. They may have filed bankruptcy and we may not be able to get it. There's probably a reason. So,
I think, this is my opinion, we deal with this every year. I mean, this one, these are already 5 years, so we're gonna have to just write them off. But I really think we talked
Solution.
about last year, but nothing really got done, but either we just tie them to the homeowner and it gets tied to the house, and that's the way it is. If that's the way the ordinance reads now, that's probably what we should be doing.
what do we do, tie it to a lien on the property?
What you do is,
You don't turn the water on.
You don't turn the water
You're
on.
gonna ask for the water.
Right.
Until the bill's paid.
Okay.
until the owner gets
Owner
it paid.
pays the bill.
Ran into the situation personally, I think I've told this story 100 times, but I renovated a house in a different county, and I go to turn the water on, they have an $1,800 bill, and I have to pay $1,800 to turn that water on in the house. Well, I have no option at this point, it gets paid, and then it's in my name now, so that I know that it gets paid all the time. If our ordinance says it's tied to the house, and unless we have to redo the ordinance, I'll say,
Well, sure, I can double check.
then I say we don't turn the water on to something unless the bill's paid, somebody's gonna pay it.
Yep. I agree, Tyler.
So what do we
I'll follow up on that.
We need to make
Well, for now, we need to, okay, writing these off.
Well,
That's the order at hand right now.
Right, I think, yeah, I'll make a motion to approve.
a couple of years ago, we had some of the major landlords come in. We met with them, we explained to them the concern that we had and this problem. And, I think at the time, they represented that they would try to do a better job of monitoring it. Well, they didn't. It's not any different. I think Dan Rickard before Kevin said that Candy Fleming does a great job of making sure that her tenants pay.
She's about the only one that does.
The girls will call the homeowners.
Yeah.
If they're past due a month or 2 or 3, and then that usually starts to get them in here now, usually.
Yeah.
And then when collections adds 40% on top of our bill, so you tell them that gets them in here a little quicker too, so.
Well, this is the second time I've heard this story, number one, not on Board of Works, but on council. So, I mean, if we don't have an ordinance that says that we tie it to the landowner or
Then we
property
need-
owner,
then we
I'm
need to
not
amend that
voting on
ordinance.
this until we do, because if it doesn't change, I'm not gonna play this game. It's not right. If we wait a year and then revisit this thing, we've just lost that much money again.
Okay, I'll double check the statute and the ordinance. I'm almost sure that ultimately the responsibility is the property owner.
Get this as close to you as we can.
We just need to change our policy.
It's more changing our policy, right?
So is that something we have to do right now? Because, like I said, this is the second time I've seen this. I feel really bad about it.
Well, we can't do that right now. But
We have to do that in council?
Pardon?
Do we have to do that in council?
No, we can revisit it in a couple of weeks,
Oh,
but
okay.
we don't have, Tim doesn't even know how it reads.
Okay.
Yeah, I think we can, I think what you're gonna have to do is you're gonna have to, I mean, logistically, it's gonna require all the property owners come back in and put it in their name. It's not a real simple thing, but, I think that if you go...
If it was easy, Dan would have done it, because Dan was always talking about it, but Dan never did it.
Well, two things, Kevin. I think what you need to do is take these delinquencies, highlight who are renters, or who
Who the
are rental
land, who the
properties.
owner is.
Yeah, who the owner is, and give us a list of the owners.
I'll be on. Yeah.
Yeah, and then maybe
I
we
do have a
can,
list of all the major renters in the area, or the major landlords in the area, too.
and maybe we'll see a pattern, and at that point, then I think we need to amend our ordinance to point out that the utilities are going to go to the landlord. And then they will be responsible for collecting that money from their,
Well, I don't think necessarily the utilities need to go to the landlord. The tenant can pay the utilities, just that whenever
I don't
they...
care who pays it, but...
Yeah, just when the water gets shut off,
Gotta get paid.
it's not going to get shut back, turned back on.
No, if you're gonna say that it's the landlord's primary
Yeah.
responsibility, you send the bill to the owner of the owner of the
You
property.
need to say that, though. The only thing is to say is if you own the property, the bill,
Sure.
you got to pay it.
Yeah.
So if you want to put it in your name or if you don't want to put it in your name, we don't care, but
Yeah.
when the water gets turned off to get it turned back on, someone's paying that bill to turn the water back on.
right,
I mean, it's pretty, I won't even involve the landlord, it's just, it goes with the property. Cut and dry. If you want water, you gotta pay the water bill.
Mhm.
And then, I'm sure we'll get it paid. Once they're gonna start digging wells in town.
can't do that.
These wells look pretty expensive, I don't know if you know in town.
Is that something that can be done with a public notice or letter, or?
We would probably contact all those landlords and probably have them come in here and let them say their piece and yell at us and everything, and they will,
Oh,
and
yeah.
then we'll move on.
Well, that's a lot of money every year.
It is. A lot of money.
Yeah, I'd be curious to see how many of these are renters of properties that are those people's renters. In other words, you know, and show them how much money the city's losing. Get the message.
Well, I don't think they care until it hits their pocketbook.
No.
And that's what I'm saying, because I don't really want to write this off until we got something in line for next year, until we don't go down this path.
Is it the state statute that's 5 years and they're considered uncollectible?
It's probably
6
based
years?
on a 6-year statute of limitations.
Craig, are you proposing that we table this tonight? Not,
I'd really like to get something
Revisit it?
set, don't you think?
we can do that, as far as I'm concerned.
We've written it out for 6 years.
Make that in the
Don't
motion.
get me wrong, but
No,
I
I'm
give Tim a chance to check it out and find out what is the right thing to do, and then I think it would be smart to do that So I make a motion that we table that.
I attended a municipal law conference earlier this year, and this was a topic that came up, and more communities are doing what you're proposing, and that is just, it goes to the property owner. They deal with, if they're gonna rent it out, they collect it, or they make sure that they're taxed.
Should we want to put these back in the pile, or do you want us to hang on to them?
You know, you can print new ones.
Thank you.
Did
you second?
No, finish the motion. Motion is what?
To table,
The write-off of the utility.
right off the utilities until we,
Get more information.
and come to
Come
a
to a plan for the future.
future collection.
Okay. Got a motion, Bill, and
Second.
second. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, the same. Okay. Thank you, Kevin. Let's go with Mark next. He looks like he's ready to go. I'm surprised you didn't bring your good presenter this evening.
He was tied up.
He was tied up.
So you're stuck with me. 25,334. I'll be brief. I think I'll try to reserve most of the time for questions and answers, but did everyone get a copy of this handout I brought? I don't know if that circle.
Phyllis didn't get one.
Do we need some more, Sarah?
No.
I'll get some extra copies here too.
We all got them.
Again, my name is Mark Sullivan. I'm with Midwestern Engineers. And what I want to do is go back a little bit and refresh your memory. Around the first of the year, or December I think it was, of last year, I came and presented a study looking at the costs to potentially refurbish or replace the Monroe Street water plant, just here east of town, to look at refurbishing Winchester water plant down on Winchester Street, and then to address problems with the raw water mains coming from Bern. Currently, you get water that services the Winchester plant that comes from Bern. It's pumped all the way up, I believe it's 12, 15 miles up that way. That main is old, especially between the town of Monroe on south to Bern. A lot of leaks, a lot of problems, so we were looking at rehabbing that. The Monroe Street plant is, 70 years old? 1953, so whatever the math is on that, but pushing, 50 would be 50 and 14, so mid-60s.
Well, you would know about it, hello.
And we always say tongue-in-cheek, your new water plant, which is Winchester Street, was built in the 70s, so that's your new plant. What originally spurred this, you have a well field just northeast of Monroe, and it's pretty well at the end of its life. It's probably got 8 to 10 years left from what the hydrogeologists are telling us. So because of the end of the life of the well field and the fact that Monroe Street's 60-some years old, the city felt it was prudent to start looking at what's the cost and what are our options to potentially replace that and to refurbish the south plant. So that report that was presented in December looked at those costs. And just in general terms, it said that the cost to replace that plant, fix Winchester Street, and fix the raw water main was between 15 and 16 million. And that cost was contingent upon being able to find a new well field east of town. Currently, the city owns property out east of town, and if we could successfully find replacement wells out there, we could renovate or build a new plant to replace Monroe, and it would allow us then to also fix Winchester. The kicker was, if we could not find water east of town, it would mean we'd have to get all of our water from the Bern well field, which Bern has tons and tons of water down there. The problem is we would have to build a new raw main up to Winchester. We would have to greatly expand Winchester. And the bottom line was that option was going to be about $5 million more, so in excess of $20 million.
Our hope was that we could find water out east for two reasons. It was a more cost-effective option. The second reason, there's some thought, or prudent thought, that to have redundant treatment in town is a good thing. You can service a plant, you can take one out of service while the other one can carry the load. The goal through this project, and the hope was that we could establish two plants to have that redundancy. So I left out of that meeting, I left you with those costs, and I believe that same night, the council or the Board of Works approved a contract with Peerless Midwest to establish the first test well on your property out east. They in fact drilled that well, and it was successful. We received in excess of the upper 400 gallon per minute, around 460 gallon per minute from that well. Our ultimate goal with a new east side plant was to have it sized, well, our ultimate wish was to have it sized at 1,500 gallon, and I'll talk about those flows here in a minute. So if we're going to have 1,500 gallon a minute, we need 3 500 gallon per minute wells with a fourth as backup, or any combination that would get us to 1,500 gallon per minute with a spare well to serve as backup. I mean, if we could get two 750 gallon per minute wells and then a spare backup, we could do it with 3. In this instance, the first well yielded 460. To make the math easy, I may do 450, but so at 450, we need probably in the neighborhood of 3 to 4 wells. Well, we were at least happy enough with the first yield of that first well that the city authorized Peerless to drill a second well. Again, they drilled a second well. It yielded around 450, 460 GPM. So the pattern became, it looks like we were going to continue to get wells in that range. We proceeded on and drilled a third test well. The third test well, again, was 460. Based on all their study and the hydrogeologists looking at that site, it can comfortably pump 3 wells at 460 and not appreciably draw down the aquifer. So we can generate essentially that much water from the well field. We have not drilled the fourth well, but based on 460, and if somebody can do the quick math, 460 times 3 is 1,200 plus another 180, 1,380. We revised our numbers, and to be conservative, rather than a 1,500 gallon per minute plant out there, we are proposing to build a 1,200 gallon per minute plant. We have 3 wells that will yield 1,380, so we're comfortably within that 1,200 GPM range. To offset, originally we were looking at 2 1,500 gallon per minute pump or plants. Now we're only at 1,200 out east. We're proposing to take the improvements at Winchester to 1,700. Now the two together, 1,200 and 1,700, that will serve your peak demand through the year 2035. So it takes us out 20 years. It will allow those plants to operate a little over half the time during the day. And the other beauty is, by operating Winchester full-time during the day, you can take the east side completely out of service and be able to carry the load with Winchester. The obvious answer is, though, how do we take Winchester out of service and have a smaller plant deal with that? We are proposing to design Winchester so that half of Winchester can be taken out of service at a time. So half of Winchester plus the east side plant will also meet your peak flow demands through 2035. By at least being able to take half of it out, you can replace filter media, do work on the plant, and still maintain that service. So it allows us to do the redundancy that we hope to achieve. We're just not an even 50-50 split. We're kind of doing it with a little bit what the water yield gave us. So we kind of dealt or played with the hands or the cards we were dealt. So based on that
that finalized the question that we couldn't answer in December. We couldn't tell you whether to go option A, 15 to 16 million, or option B, 20 in excess of 20, because we didn't know if we had the water. Now we know we have the water. So you can pinpoint a final option, and that's what this document does that I passed out. Before we look at the actual cost numbers, you'll see there's some maps in the back. These are maps that were taken out of the original report. The first map that has a bunch of lines on it, it actually shows the location of the east side site. It says east side site, clear to the far right-hand side. What all those lines are, the hydrogeologist did a study that's called a fracture trace analysis, and they can look at ground contours and the features of the ground, and they can identify fractures potentially beneath the ground down into the bedrock. And each one of those lines represents a fracture. Where two fractures or three fractures intersect, we put a dot, and the likelihood of drilling a well in the intersection of multiple fractures increases your odds of having a well that's going to produce. So that's what they did out on that site. The following page will show the actual site, and it kind of shows where the wells were that we drilled. Again, they weren't as high as we had hoped for, but they were still adequate, producing in the neighborhood of 460 GPM each. But that shows you where the location of everything is that I talked about. The two red areas, the Monroe Street plant, and then down to the south, the red area along the south edge is the Winchester Street plant. So to do what is proposed brought us back to the original option that was in the plan. Essentially build a new east side treatment plant, new well field, and renovate the Winchester Street plant. What you see in the cost tables is a summary of the cost to drill and develop the new wells. Phase 2 is the east side water plant cost, and I'll read those off. To develop the well field is a little over $1.1 million. A new east side water treatment plant that would be located out on that site. And the good thing is the city already owns that property, so I think there was roughly 100 acres out there that we were able to put the wells on. It'll also be able to be a good site for the new water plant. So you already own that 100 acres, and that was a good investment that was made sometime in the past that you're taking advantage of now. So the east side water plant, the new plant would be in the neighborhood of just a little over $5 million. If you turn to the next page, the renovation of Winchester, to take it up to a capacity of 1,700 and replace all the filters, is $4.1 million. And then the renovation of the burn water main is just under $4 million, $3.9 million. All of those numbers add up to a construction cost of $14.195 million. Estimated non-construction costs added in, and non-construction would be financial advisor, rate consultant, or one and the same, financial advisor, rate consultant, legal, bond counsel, engineering, soil borings, inspectors when it's being constructed, all that added in to bring the estimated total cost of a project at $15.9 million. Now, the reason that I'm here tonight was to, again, summarize the options that were presented in that original report and to confirm that we indeed found adequate water out at that site. As I've discussed with the mayor and Tim, probably the next logical step would be to engage a rate consultant to say, okay, $15.9 million, how do we pay for this, and what's the impact on rates? There's several options of financing the project. USDA Rural Development will finance and potentially have some grant, may not, we don't know until we submit. The advantage of USDA, I guess, is all in how you look at it, but they do have the potential for grants. They also finance for 40 years. So the longer term will keep the rates down somewhat. There's different financial philosophies. We all were told when we bought our houses 15-year mortgages were better than 30-year mortgages. Same thing applies on this. Your rate consultant will be able to advise you of whether it makes sense to go 40 years and what that rate would be, or go through the open bond market, the Indiana Finance Authority, State Revolving Loan Fund. Those two finance over 20-year periods of time. They will be able to take this and make it recommendations to you and show you what the impacts would be on the rates with respect to these costs. So to get the next step or the next big picture, I guess my recommendation to the council and to the city would be to look at engaging a rate consultant and to investigate what makes the most sense for financing or funding a project of this magnitude through the city. Time frame wise, you're probably, if you said yes, we want to keep moving forward with a rate consultant, by the time you get through all the funding and financing, before you get the new facilities built, you're probably still 2.5, 3 years out. So in light of the well field up there having a life of about 8 years, you know, the clock's ticking. So my purpose today is not to put pressure on you, but to at least advise of the next step and, you know, what would make sense. So I'll answer any questions you have, but I think in summary, my recommendation would be is you at least have a good estimate of approximate cost. Now let's see what options are available to fund and finance and what impacts that would have on your current rates.
Okay.
Any questions that anyone has?
I'm just sorry about this. I just got to ask. I see $600,000 for ice pigging. What is ice pigging?
Well, pigging in general of a water main is running something up the inside. Water mains will get a buildup of iron and some debris. There's different things that can be pulled up through there. One of the methods they use is to actually use ice and force or pump the ice up internally, and that abrasiveness of ice will actually scour the inside of the main and clean that internal deposit out. So ice pigging is a pigging method that utilizes ice to pig it.
Okay. Thank you.
If this all comes to fruition, build a new plant, like new wells, what happens to the plant current and what you
That current plant will ultimately be abandoned. Now, through the process, that plant currently is putting out about 800 gallon per minute. In general, the town, to meet your demands, needs to be somewhere in the neighborhood of 1,700 gallon per minute. That's kind of why we ended up with that plant at 1,700. With the new plant at 1,200, you will need to phase your construction. So what we would propose is to build the new plant and the new well at 1,200 GPM, continue to use Monroe at 600 GPM, so that gets us 1,800 GPM to meet our demand. Now we can take all of Winchester out of service, do its renovations, and more importantly, we need to take Winchester out of service to be able to fix the main between Monroe and Bern. So we take it out of service, we repair the main, we get Winchester up to snuff. Now you get 1,700 gallon per minute there. Now you can abandon Monroe. Ultimately, Monroe needs to be abandoned. It sits in a floodplain. I had pictures last time where it looked like an island where the river had completely surrounded it. It's been a good utility for the city, but it's met its life. So we would abandon, take it out of service. The other downside with Monroe, it only has softeners out there. You also have iron. Winchester Street has iron filters that remove the iron, then it's softened. softeners aren't really intended to be iron removal. They will do it, but you lose your internal media pretty quickly. The new plant would have iron filters and softeners out there, so
We would have better water.
you would have better water, yes. No question you'll have better water,
We have good water now.
yeah, and it'll be better. But just for the fact that you've got plants that are 50, 60 years old.
And the water out there on the north side of town's cascading and creating a lot more iron, isn't it, in that field?
Yes, yes. The new wells, we have all the water quality makeup of it. I mean, you still got iron in it. You have extremely high hardness.
Lime?
A lot of lime and calcium. So,
Nothing in here getting rid of that plant.
no, there should be costs. We should have abandonment costs in that. So I'll make sure, Matt,
It's just a big, we just tore down a big expensive building. Over here, there's nothing to do with this. It's a big old building. Get rid of it.
yeah.
Well, it'll be probably 3 or 4 years before we get rid of that building anyway, right?
Every bit of it.
Okay.
Probably pushing out 4 years. But I'll double check, because we want to make sure that at this stage of the game, we got all costs inclusive budgeted, so as we start looking at financing, we can say we've covered all the bases. So I'll double check and make sure that cost, but we want to make sure that cost of abandonment's in there.
What's
Pushing
our-
out, let's say, 10 years, there could always be the option at the east to add another well onto that. Is that true?
It is, to some extent, the hydrogeologists feel like they've exhausted the aquifer in that immediate area. Now, we looked at another well field a little bit west of there, down along the river, and you could potentially expand that. The one thing to keep in mind, with this project, we looked out through 2035 and tried to project future needs. The intent would be for, once you complete these improvements, we would like to think that you're good for another generation. So at least the next 30 years, you shouldn't have to go looking for any additional water.
Okay.
That was kind of the intent of the
I
study.
guess I'm thinking though too, in case the Winchester plant, you had indicated that for right now between Monroe and Byrne, that line is pretty good shape. But in 10 years, if something major would happen and you'd have to shut that completely down, are we going to be able to maintain this end? Because you wouldn't have any of Winchester at that
Yeah,
point.
you will. That's the beauty and the redundancy. You would be able to cover yourself. But our intent with this renovation of the new main south is to make improvements to put another 30 to 50 years life in that main. From Monroe to Decatur, that's a fairly new
Pretty new.
PVC main.
Okay.
We tell people PVC mains should have in excess of 60 years, 75, a long time. That was put in the early 2000s, I think, is what you said, Bill. So,
I remember
we've
that.
got another 50 years in that. The improvements that we make from Byrne to Monroe would also instill another 50 years. So the intent is to make that main fail-safe or in good shape for the next 50 years. Now, you never say never.
Well,
You can
because
spring a
what,
leak
was
or
it 2
something.
years ago when we did have the problem?
Chased a leak down in the winter.
And it was on this side, I mean, it was just close to...
The one that Grody found, Gene, at night. Was that on between Monroe and Decatur, or was that down our
No,
south?
it's behind Courtesy Motors.
Yeah, it was right up here.
Yeah. So,
That was after the treatment plant.
Okay.
After the treatment plant?
so that was in the system itself.
Oh, well, that makes
So that was in
difference.
the system.
And Winchester was servicing it, right, Bill?
Yeah.
But yeah, good point. Our goal is to rehab the raw main to put the life back in for another generation. But you never say never. You can spring a leak here or there. That's where your redundancy of the two plants allows you to shut one down for a short period of time, go out, fix, rehab, and then continue on.
What's our actual demand right now for water supply on a peak?
During the summertime with high water demand, somewhere around 2.2, 2.1 million gallons a day. On an average day, you're running about 1.5 million. To convert that to gallons per minute,
if you take 2.2 million gallons, divide that by 1440, you'll see that that equals about 1,700 gallon per minute. So what that means, one plant running 1,700 gallon per minute will meet actually the peak demand for 2035, which we're estimating between 2.4 and 2.5. 2.5 million gallons divided by 1440 equals the 1,700 gallon per minute, and that's why we chose to upgrade that plant to 1,700. Currently, you're running about 2.1, 2.2 on your busiest day. So,
Okay.
need a motion?
Any other question? No, there's no motion here. It's just an informational session.
Yeah, just informational, and we'll continue to interact with this group, but I think now we're ready to start getting that financial impact from a rate consultant.
One motion you might want to consider is going forward with a rate study.
Yeah.
Okay.
Selecting who you're going to use. Typically-
I'll make a motion that we go ahead forward with the rate study.
Yeah, I'll second that, yeah.
That's what you'd recommend, isn't it? That's what I'd
Exactly.
recommend, yeah.
Do you want to use Crow Horwath, or do you want to use Umpqua, or Crow submitted an engagement letter previously? Umpqua has done in the past as well, so.
Do you have a recommendation, Bill?
Phyllis does.
Phyllis? I just wondered.
Crow's done, they did the sewer study, rate study for them. I'm okay with that.
What do we do? We send it out for bid, or we just pick one?
You can pick one.
Just pick one. Is that my call, or is that?
Wasn't one going to give a discount or something?
Crow Horwath said that it would probably cost a couple thousand less to do the bond, refunding of the bond issue if they did the rate study as well.
Okay.
I'll make a recommendation then.
Okay.
So much
So your motion would be to move forward with the rate study with Crow Horwath.
Second.
Bill seconds that. All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Opposed, the same. Thank you. Thank you, Mark, for coming up this evening.
welcome.
Always good to see you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Couple other things here now.
Crow Horwitz. Horwath. Horwath.
Department heads have been asked to review the employee handbook that we've rewritten, and I haven't got any comments back from any of the department heads. Speak now or forever hold your peace. They don't have them?
I think just council.
Just council members.
And you.
You weren't even going to speak?
That's why we're holding our
Okay, so we've emailed them to the council members and given you hard copies, I think, and Board of Works, this document. Have you had a chance to review that? It's some exciting reading, let me tell you.
Yes, for the most part.
Yes, for the most part. Okay. Well, I just need to know if we want to have Tim adopt a resolution to adopt this.
So you're gonna adopt the employee handbook when the employees haven't reviewed it?
Well, they make policy. Board of Works and council make policy. That's why they haven't reviewed it yet.
But Tyler, go ahead.
I suggest the department head look at it first before we...
Yep. Table it and take it under advisement until we hear back from the department heads.
Department heads, you'll all have this in your mailboxes real soon.
Hate to force it.
Don't need them, no motion necessary, we'll move on from there. Okay.
So did you need a motion for
Nope,
that?
nope.
I don't think the department heads are aware of that policy. There's no,
There's really
Major
no-
changes,
There
they wrote
is no
it.
major changes.
Exactly.
Pretty much
So
the same as
it's
what it
written in
was.
a better
Just the
way.
wording is different and requirements, state requirements.
right, there's a lot of new.
I know you're all excited to read this, it's only 55 pages. Like, well, he said he's looked at most of it. Yeah. One more thing I want to read here is a letter of resignation. It's from Ted Winning, who will be retiring. It's addressed to Jeremy Gilbert. On September 29th, 2017, I will be retiring. That will be my last day to work. Thank you, Ted Winning, from the What department is he in? Street department.
How many years has that worked?
I'd have to look.
Started in 1995.
So, make this a matter of record.
So moved. Second.
All in favor? Aye. Opposed, the same. Okay, got all that out of the way. Jeremy?
Question for permission to start the hiring process. That was also looked at.
Yep, this retirement, end of this month, yes, I think you definitely need to move on that. Yep. I don't think, that's my call, I don't think I need there. So yeah, go ahead, move on that.
There's no hiring freeze on anything now.
No. Next, Madison Street. We have about 13 minutes to discuss Madison Street, and then we'll discuss it all over again in the council meeting. As you all know, the Madison Street project came in higher than we wanted it to, with an engineer's estimate of around 560, roughly, thousand. It came in at 784,000. Since the time of the bid was received, the only bid we got was from Primco, and Rick, what's his last name, Jeremy? Balmer. Rick Balmer from Primco and Todd Fredrickson, the owner of Primco, have been very kind and allowed us to actually meet with them to try to figure out how we could make some reductions to the plaza without jeopardizing the integrity of the plaza. And I think I emailed all the council members and Board of Works those ways that we could change things. I sure wish, just for the sake of the number looking better, that we could have found another 1,000 or 2,000, which we will. But for tonight's sake, we have been able to eliminate $83,926, and that was simply by extending the construction time frame. That saves us $12,000 to extend it for about a month. They might not even need that month, but by allowing it, they'll take off $12,000. Reducing the requirements for the concrete testing. Requirements for concrete testing will no longer require testing to be done by the independent testing source. Since the Primco basically owns the concrete company where we're getting this from, they do their own testing daily, and since they can test it themselves and not have a third party do that, that would save us $10,000. Switching the main pavers in the red colored paver was somewhat of a square looking paver. We've changed that to just the brick shaped paver, and that saves us $26,392. Reducing the quality of the main field pavers with standard concrete. When we get into the council meeting, did you bring a computer? If not,
I have the thumb drive, and I also have hard.
Okay, hard copies will be sufficient. We just eliminated a very small amount of pavers, which, if you compare the two drawings, you really don't even notice it whatsoever. It was just at the very ends, replace that with some concrete, which would be scored. That saves us $5,641. We had a Cadillac type of a drain trench designed for the project, and after Don Bergdahl's help and Jeremy's help, we've decided to go with a Buick instead of a Cadillac, basically, and the drainage system, by changing that, saves us $21,802. And then the bollards at the ends and at the alleys, which are the things that stick in the ground to keep cars from coming through, so we can shut the streets off. We've reduced those from 16 to 12 bollards, saves us $4,460. And then to reduce the accent pavers at the entrance, you know what, that's what I just covered, wasn't it? The reducing the accent paver. That saves us $3,451, so let me back up to that, what I thought I was talking about. The amount of main field pavers shown in the brown on the conceptual illustrator would be reduced on the corners of Madison. That was taking out the red down the very ends, yeah. Once you see the drawings, you'll understand all that. Long story short, what we what I need from the Board of Works is the acceptance of the bid with our revisions, with our cost reductions, or the denial of the same. However, if we do not accept this bid, then our options are somewhat limited. We can rebid it, but right now with the economy as hot as it is and all the commercial contractors as busy as they are, we believe that the bid would only be higher yet. Or we can accept this, take it to council, and reappropriate some funds that we have budgeted for next year. The patronicity, we'll talk about that here in just a little bit. We have exceeded our $50,000 as of this morning. I think we're up to like 56,000 right now. So we're 6,000 over. So we've got that money guaranteed now. So what I would ask for from the Board of Works is to accept the proposal with the cost reductions and with council's willingness to reappropriate some funds.
Subject to council.
Subject to
council.
Yes.
You want to make a motion?
Sure will. I'll make that motion.
Thank you, Bill. Thank you, Dave. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, the same. Thank you. Kevin and Andrew, we'll call on you at the council meeting for a little more further in-depth details on everything and make it clear.
Does Jeremy need a decision made on time?
Jeremy, changing the subject, did you need to decide anything on 5 Points tonight?
Now, a decision shortly would be greatly appreciated.
Well, we can discuss it. We got time.
Basically, what we're talking about is when we were granted the funds for the 5 Points intersection, the state has made some changes with federal funds or state funds. The state is buying out a lot of the federal aid projects, which has some pros and cons. Being that it's the first year, there's a lot of unknowns. I worked with American Structure Point, which will be our consultant for that project, to figure out what those pros and cons are. Some of the pros towards going to the state is you could possibly construct it sooner, with a little less restrictions on how it's constructed, some of the guidelines and such, but it will cost us about $300,000 additional dollars to do that. And there's still no guarantee that it's going to be constructed any faster. My recommendation from speaking with a lot of other cities and towns last week at our conference and with Structure Point, that I feel at least for this project, we ought to stay with the federal aid route on this, still looking at 2020, 2021 construction.
Yep.
Which, in order to do that, we need to get going on this project.
In sitting in the meetings with Structure Point, I totally agree with you, Jeremy. I think that the federal aid is a little more...
It's a little more strict.
Yeah. But it'll cost less. It will take a little longer. But we've been there, done that before, and I think we just feel a little more comfortable going that route. So...
And there isn't any real reason to rush, is there? No.
No.
What the state's trying to do is, and it's obviously it's working, they're flooding the market with work. And this is another way of pushing projects along. If it would be a straightforward road reconstruction project where we wasn't doing property acquisition, I'd say, hey, let's try it. But there's too many unknowns with this and with it being the first year of these state buyouts.
Yeah, from what I understand, I said it on the meeting as well, and the state hasn't really developed the parameters of what a local agreement would look like if you want the state aid project versus federal aid, and until you know what that is,
Crapshoot.
Yeah, you're taking a real risk. You're kind of the guinea pig, and
Sometimes that's okay, but I don't think that's...
I don't know. The advantage supposedly is you can speed the project up, and your construction costs could be less
than what it is with the federal aid project. But there's no certainty of that. And secondly, we know what is certain is that the upfront cost will be, like Jeremy said, about $300,000 greater for us to go that route. So,
Jeremy, will this be kind of like the
Yeah, it's-
industry?
because of the unknowns,
Yeah.
I tend to agree with what Jeremy's recommending.
The only communities I came up with last week that's going with the state project is ones that have been working on these projects ongoing for the last 5 or 6 years. They're ready for bid. They paid off their upfront money, paid all the engineering, and they're going with the state buyout because they're ready for construction. We're not anywhere close to that point. So, depending on what you guys decide on tonight, I will, if you guys want to move on this, I will get the contract forwarded to NDOT for review only, and then it will have to come back to you for approval. I do actually meet with NDOT the week after next for a quarterly meeting, so that's why I really wanted some guidance as to which direction we're going to go. Because quarterly now, I will have to meet with them for progress and updates on where we're at with the project.
Okay. So you don't really need anything from us this evening, just by consensus, I think we all agree with going to federal.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
Thank you.
With that,
Was there anything else, Jeremy? We talked about a couple things this afternoon. One was Christmas lights. Was that council or what's that? Okay.
Council or Harry, I'll have just a couple minutes.
All right, whatever you think. Never mind.
motion to adjourn? Oh, Bill has some...
Well, sometime.
I have some information for you too back in my office.
Sometime on this woodworking operation down in Jackson.
Yes, sir. Mm-hmm.
I think we need to sit and discuss what direction I need to go.
I think the man's doing a business in a residence, and not just a business, but a messy business, a loud business, and a messy business.
Be my recommendation, because there's sawdust on the street going into our, not
Drains.
yeah, going into
Storm
our
sewers.
storm.
Well, I guess
Storm water.
sometimes we'll
I would recommend that we
Sure.
have Don Bergdahl go visit this man and see if he can't correct that problem. What do you think? What'd you say, Don?
We can't have that going in our drain.
No, I think that'd be a good first step.
I'd like to shut him
There's a
down.
lot more that we need to do than that,
Yeah,
though.
I'd like to shut him down, but I think it takes a little bit more forcefulness than,
Yeah, we can't do that in 1 minute.
no.
I
know.
why he stores his products on the sidewalk.
He doesn't anymore.
Bill, I think he still puts some stuff out there sometimes.
I got him to stop that, but I mean, he used to have the whole sidewalk full, yeah. But no, I don't know if he puts out once in a while, but I mean, he's,
Bill, don't leave tonight. I got something back in my office.
I think it'd be
for you,
great just to get the ball started with Don Bergdahl. That's definitely.
I'll talk to Sean.
Okay. Anything else you want to cover?
too. He's coming around. He's doing a lot of that.
I'll make a motion to adjourn.
Thank you.
Second.
Motion and a second to adjourn. All in favor?
Aye.
Right.
Opposed, the same.